This is Common Filth Radio, episode 79. Thank you very much for listening. Episode 13 of Common Filth Extra is out now on Bandcamp, commonfilthradio.bandcamp.com. This week, I take another excursion into the world of Reddit. I establish how mainstream Reddit actually is, and I add it up. I add up every bit of dysfunction you can possibly imagine on this episode. I sat down for an hour. It's an hour plus episode. I think it's like 63 minutes or something. I clicked on a Reddit link that a listener sent in, and I just went from there. And you don't want to miss this. It is captivating. You're going to hear about live-in sex slaves. You're going to hear about strategies for converting your straight friends, all sorts of great stuff. And all stuff that is worthy of our praise, all stuff that is worthy of our esteem as Westerners. So you could hear all of that for $1 or more on commonfilthradio.bandcamp.com. $1 is all it is, and it is worth the trip. And on episode 13 of Common Filth Extra, I come to a lot of conclusions. I make a lot of points, but one of the points is all of this dysfunction you see, it is so much more prevalent than you think. I've been getting a lot of stuff from my followers about the new Disney movie Zootopia. A lot of people have been sending me links about how Zootopia is a furry movie. I knew that from the beginning. As soon as I saw that trailer for Zootopia, I was like, this is a furry movie. And people sending me links to the Twitter accounts of head people, the head animator, or I think it was, saying like, "Oh, send us your pictures. Oh, we want to see people dressed up going to the Zootopia premiere." And you might say, "Well, furries, they're just a small segment of the population. They're not even worth paying attention to." And I make the argument: combine the amount of people that engage in all of this strange behavior made possible only by modernity. It's only possible through the rotting carcass that is our civilization and all of the creatures that have made the corpse its home. So I was sent this, among so many other things. This is from BuzzFeed, and the title of the article, "Proof Disney is Actually Marketing Zootopia to Furries. A marketing firm contracted by Disney has been reaching out to furry groups asking them to post to Instagram with the movie hashtag in exchange for freebies." You see what they do? You people form your groups of like-minded deviants, and you are exploited, and you are happy to be exploited because you are so starved for attention, which is why you decided to do this in the first place, why you decided to become an animal person, why you decided to make your fursuit. The alpha consumers, by any other name. There's a lot of subgroups of alpha consumers, and they all have to do with some sort of weird sexual thing. And that's a fact. You can't avoid that. But anyway, marketing firm contracted by Disney has been reaching out to furry groups, asking them to post to Instagram with the movie hashtag in exchange for freebies. And this is written by Katie Notopoulos. Katie Notopoulos. Golden Retriever Girl. It says, furries have been speculating that Disney's latest animated movie Zootopia is tailor-made for them. Wait, that's linked to. What site? I'm not clicking on that. And apparently they're not wrong. BuzzFeed News has obtained an email that a marketing agency working with Disney sent to the furry meetup group Fur Life, encouraging furries to post photos of themselves in fursuits to Twitter and Instagram with the movie hashtag, even offering posters or movie swag to those that do. It's easy to see why Zootopia, which is set in what's basically a human world, but with animals wearing clothes and doing human jobs, would be appealing to furries. The plot centers around a female rabbit rookie cop who teams up with a wily male fox con artist to solve a big crime together. The fox character is a near doppelganger of the fox from Disney's animated Robin Hood, which has been hugely popular in the furry community. The furry community, both as something they relate to and also want to yiff with. And in parentheses, she includes have sex with. Now, this girl, you might look at her and be like, wow, I really want to make this girl the mother of my children. First of all, she probably owns a She probably owns like a bunch of different dildos and maybe a strap-on that she uses, for God knows what reason. And maybe, she does want to have kids to show them how you could break the gender binary. And I bet you she took an freshman anthropology class the same semester she took sociology class, and it just blew her mind. Wow, people are really diverse. Let's raise our children like that. We're going to raise our children in a gender-neutral environment, and you'll put up with it. Because you're desperate. You're pathetic. You're like, oh, okay. I'll get my cum. I don't care if she wants to live in a world where boys play princesses and girls play soldiers. Come, dude. Dude, come. Yeah. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Remember the thing we read a couple weeks ago? Maybe it was last week, I'm not sure. But it was the title of an article from Vice, how they interviewed Danish sex store workers and talked about their top Valentine's Day sellers. And one of them was straight couples buying strap-ons. Now, why do women want a penis and why do men want a vagina? It's only white people that are obsessed with this role reversal shit and breaking the binary. It's sick. And like I said on Common Filth Extra episode 13, where your sexuality is, how your sexuality operates, says everything about where your mind, body, and soul is located. Role reversal. Let's go to the sex shop. Our relationship isn't interesting enough. You're a pussy. And I have one too. You know that emo song? Remember 2005, 2006, whatever it was? She says, I already have a pussy. I don't need another one. How true that's becoming. Oh my goodness. And we also have, I don't want to be human anymore. I want to be an animal. I want to be a fox that wears a suit and a tie. On my way to fur court in a suit and a tie. That last part we left off with here from this article. The furry community. Robinhood, which has been hugely popular in the furry community, both as something they relate to and want to yip with, have sex with. She had to include that. She has to blow middle America's mind. Ooh, wow, yipping, that's a thing. That's a thing. I had a furry friend. They were very nice. I went to college. Continuing, and so here we find ourselves at the nexus of the two truest internet axioms. Furries ruin everything, and if it exists, there's porn of it, aka Rule 34. Never trust a girl who is too familiar with internet culture. Never. Furries themselves are the first to claim they ruin everything, sort of an in-group joke, and indeed there are already furry artists at work drawing the female rabbit character in the nude. Link not safe for work for a nude rabbit with human breasts and a vagina. That makes a lot of sense. What else have you written here? This has been a recent hobby of mine. Clicking on the biographies, or like the staff profiles of these authors. For clickbait websites. To prove Disney, okay, got that one. Turn the new Facebook emoji reactions into Trump reactions. Who cares? Meet the woman with the worst name luck ever. 11 things people over 30 feel when they read BuzzFeed posts about being in your 20s. Who cares? Who cares about any of this? What? And this is a banner on like a scrolling banner of their different stories. If dudes were honest about their penis size, the sparkling strawberry kiwi sangria is beyond refreshing. The satisfying recipe video for honeycomb toffee. I was sexually abused by the Catholic Church. Should you date Matt or Steve from Fuller House? And 4 plus-sized women just totally slayed the cover of Ebony magazine. Now, I know a lot of you out there are in this bubble of dank memes, Trump hats, dank memes, fashy aesthetics, Taylor Swift. I know a lot of you are into that. And a lot of you, I imagine, are so embedded within it that you don't take any time to look around. You don't look at the world around you. You aren't removed from it, you just think you are. Your mind might be gone, but your body is still here. And this is what your fellow man has, this is what is occupying their gaze. This neurotic shit. People who are so uncomfortable with their imperfections that they'll stare at it and rationalize it and say, wow, I'm plus sized. I totally slayed this. I totally slayed this outfit just like this plus sized chick. She slayed the cover of Ebony magazine. Or, oh, I have a Netflix account. This TV show on Netflix. Wow, I relate to this so much. I'm thinking about it. People are like, I'm plus sized. There's a reason why God made you a gluttonous piece of shit. It's because even if you weren't, you'd be the worst person ever. You would not be a good custodian of the beauty you so crave. And I know, Western beauty standards are oppressive. We found this one carving of a fat chick, and that means she represented the beauty, the ideal. You know, I mean, they probably abandoned that when they figured out that jizzing inside of her wouldn't bear fruit because her fat is crushing in all of her reproductive organs. You know, I think they abandoned that as soon as they figured it out. So you can't have those beauty standards. You can't achieve them. So you're like, oh, well, I didn't want them anyway. And then you go on BuzzFeed and engage in vanity. 4 plus-sized women just totally slayed the cover of Ebony magazine, enabling self-destructive behavior. Now, back to the Zootopia thing. I don't know how much more of this I need to read. I don't think there is much more I need to read, but what we need to address is this. This is Friday estimates from Box Office Mojo. Zootopia, #1 movie with an estimated $19.5 million on a single day. So you can say, yeah, it might have the furry aesthetic. It might have the backing of the furry community. You know, these researchers, these marketers, marketing research people might be pandering to furries and groups. But that doesn't mean anything. They're only a small number of people. Look who's enabling it. The majority enables the minority. $19.5 million on a single day for something you thought was just some niche thing. Some 0.1% of whatever. You vote with your dollar, and look how people are voting. They're voting for rabbits with tits. Think of all the moms and dads taking their kids to see this movie. Think of all the moms and dads that took their kids to see this movie on its opening Friday. Think about how many of those kids are going to become furries. And no, it won't be just a phase. Our nation's school districts make sure that the stupid things kids believe become the stupid things they practice as adults. You're gay? That's so great. We'll put you in with the Gay Straight Alliance. It'll be wonderful. You're a furry. We have a club for that too. You're gender non-conforming? That's so great. I know a girl who works at BuzzFeed. She'll write an article about you. You get a lot of attention. So speaking of the mentally unhinged, I have something special planned for you. I have something very special planned for you. I have the second track running right now. It's hooked up to my computer, and you're going to hear the audio of this video that was sent to me. And it's not the greatest audio, but it should be pretty self-explanatory. We have 2 members of our natural aristocracy. I'm sure they're in a very loving, functional relationship. And we're going to go with it. We're going to listen to what they have to say. So let me cue up the recording here, and we will go.
Hello, and welcome back to
What's the Safe Word?
I'm Em.
And I'm Bolt.
And today we're going to talk about puppies.
Ow.
He's putting on a leather puppy mask.
So what is puppy play?
What is puppy play? We all remember that from last week, don't we? Alright, let's keep going.
Puppy play is about role play. It's about someone getting into the role play of a dog in that headspace. It's also about having a handler or a sir or a master who takes on the role of the person in charge in that role play.
It's not necessarily a sexual play, though it can be. For many, it serves as a release of the animal part of them. Most importantly, though, is that it's not bestiality. Real animals are not involved.
Give it another few months, and we'll see how not involved it is then. I know how addiction works. A little wouldn't do it, or a little used to do it, and now a little got more and more, right? Fuck it, keep going.
Whenever I'm asked what kind of draws me to puppy play and why I do it, I generally just put the question into perspective for the person. Well, that's because puppies are generally just happy to see you, they're always fun and playful, and they make us laugh. But most importantly, they provide that love and that kind of sense of commitment that you can't get from anyone else or anything else in this world.
They make you laugh, and they give you that sense of commitment that you can't get from anything else in this world. How revealing that is, for reasons they probably aren't aware of. You see, commitment can only exist in the context that you're talking about between a man and a woman, something you clearly don't know anything about because you think that girls have cooties. That's where you are in your development. That's where you stop developing. Ew. Girls have cooties, boys don't. But isn't that revealing? You can't get commitment from anything else in this world. It just goes to show you how naturally monogamous these people are. And I would like to take this opportunity to bring up something a friend of mine brought up. And the point was this. Notice how these people always role play as an animal that requires man to survive. Yes, there are wild dogs. However, domesticated dogs don't do too well on their own. Something that is designed to socialize with humans. Something that is bred to socialize with humans. Something that is domesticated. And let's go back to that.
Puppy play and why I do it, I generally just put the question into perspective for the person. Well, that's because puppies are generally just happy to see you, they're always fun and playful.
Always happy to see you, always fun and playful. This is what their perception of what they should get from people. All sunshine, all happiness all the time. Because they are miserable. They are miserable, invalid, emotional invalids. Arrested development nutcases. And people will viciously attack you if you call this what it is. If you dismiss people because of this, which I think is a very, very valid reason to dismiss somebody outright, whatever they say, whatever they do. I get all these young people all the time. They think I don't actually mean what I say. They're just like, why are you saying that? You actually believe in stuff? No, I'm actually putting all of this effort into stuff I don't actually believe. I'm saying words that aren't informed by any sincerity. Nope. We should all just go back to our anime and video games. I'm supposed to seriously entertain the words and notions of people who reject the most basic thing anybody can do, which is pair bond. It's not that difficult. Yet the opinions of these people, I'm supposed to listen to them. Why? Why should I listen to their opinions even though maybe on the surface it looks like we agree? But the problem is I could find somebody that lives a life closer to mine and find those same opinions. So, in other words, young people, when they hear like that one guy, I forget his name, but young people, our young people, they don't care if somebody else is working towards something or having similar opinions. No, what matters is they're gay and they're saying this stuff. Wow, they're on our side. I have encountered like 3 or 4 examples of this directly this week. From the ages of like 14 to 44. 45, 46, 50. Let's go to 14 to 50. People will take more seriously the opinions of male cum guzzlers. Their opinions take precedent over anybody else. Who are you not allowed to criticize? That's who rules over you. That is what occupies the upper echelon of your social hierarchy. No one has been able to prove me wrong on this. You know, they can dish it, but they can't take it. Which is why on every website you see a terms of service that prohibits criticisms of deviant lifestyle. All of a sudden, when the matter switches from pride to guilt, all of a sudden we're no longer collectivists. We're suddenly not responsible for the group with which we identify the most. So, we'll continue with this puppy play thing. I'll let you chew on those words for a bit. Let's go.
And they make us laugh. But most importantly, they provide that love and that kind of sense of commitment that you can't get from anyone else or anything else in this world.
I have to stop there again. That is so sick. And so indicative of the psychology of this group that we value so much. By the way, guess the race of these two guys.
Puppy play itself actually sprang from a larger category of animal role play, or pet play, which includes pup play, pony play, kitten play.
Pup play, pony play, and they're showing like leather suits. There's a picture of leather suits popping up as they talk about them. Pig play? Oh, you thought I was just making up that pause pig thing, didn't you?
Turtle play.
Turtle play. Oh, very clever. They showed Ninja Turtles.
Griffin play.
Bird play?
Well,
seabirds.
Liger play. You know,
Oh!
whatever you're into. While much of this activity has been nailed down to specifics today, pet play didn't always start out so well defined. And, in fact, it's been around for much longer than many realize. Some say
their mannerisms are like a child's mannerisms when you ask, oh, how is school? They like tuck in their shoulders and they like kind of squeeze their hands between their thighs and like, they're squirming a little bit. Just worth pointing out.
The notion of pet play came from the myths and the stories that we grew up hearing about. In order to teach lessons, they usually had ethics or some sort of like morals encoded within.
and now you do puppy play with your life partner. Some morals those stories taught you, and also they're using examples of childhood stories to justify this. And you think I'm playing games when I say developmentally stunted?
Story. We can even draw parallels to comics and contemporary superheroes like Catwoman, Wildcat, Batman, and one of my personal favorites, Wolverine.
Culturally, philanthropy was really the first form of pet play, and it was a common ritual in many tribes, in which members of the tribe would take a role of an animal physically, and often spiritually, of an animal that was revered or hunted.
Other terms you may have heard of that fall under philanthropy also include lycanthropy or werewolves, cyanthropy or were-dogs, and alloranthropy, which are were-cats. And in this way, the construct of pet play was seen as, by the surrounding society, as empowering and mythical and kind of just giving, structure.
Structure? There's a lot of structure to be found in cum. Maybe the structure with that is like, oh, the woman's ovulating and the sperm, fertilizes the egg. You don't have that excuse here.
And power and
mysticism.
Yeah,
magic.
That thing.
Some people find the use of puppy play similar to how furries in today's society use
furries
to portray themselves.
But that's an entire...
I actually didn't watch this whole video. I didn't know they were going to start talking about furries. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Different episode, which I'm sure we'll get to eventually, but...
Man.
Furries are...
great.
Yeah. For some in the BDSM community...
What the fuck is with this happy music? It's as if they know they need to hide how disturbing this whole thing is with ting, 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 ting. Again, it's like one of those Fisher-Price toys that you give to your kids where each color represents a note and they like bang on it. And it makes that ting, ting, ting sound. I think that the glockenspiel. I think that's what the legitimate instrument of that is. It's a very, very grating, childish sound. And it's on every one of these videos I find. I'm coming out to my family is trans. I'm non-binary. Look and listen to the music. Wow. Look, it's a positive thing. It's not completely fucking creepy.
Degradation, humiliation, any sort of headspace in that regard, so long as the scenario is acceptable to those that are involved.
In whatever scenario they agreed upon, some stay in it for like 24/7, and others just do occasionally to unwind and get rid of the stress.
Puppy play dynamics. Very informative.
Yeah, and in that way, puppy play is very fluid and flexible, and really about communication between the puppy and the handler, or the puppy and the sir, the puppy daddy. Whatever situation you have going on, communication, first and foremost, is what is important.
So the reason people get into puppy play is kind of to release them.
This is speculation. Likelihood of these two raised by single mothers. Where would you put it? That's a question. Let me know.
themselves, take on a different persona that's not human, and a puppy is different from their daily routine.
Yeah, and it's about that person, that puppy, getting into a different state that allows them to be a different form of themselves. On the flip side, the handlers get that feeling of love and unconditional, support and play from their puppy. And so there are two sides to that coin.
Plus, it's just fun.
Yeah, at the very heart of it is always about fun. Puppy play is about fun.
But I thought it was about getting that commitment that you couldn't get from anything else in this world. Who would have thought that anuses aren't a good way to instill commitment? Yeah, I couldn't have seen that coming. Couldn't have seen that coming at all. Where were we?
First and foremost, about fun and respect and just finding
Where are we
a
going?
part of yourself and expressing that.
Yeah, it's different, it's weird, so don't be weird about it.
It's not that weird.
It's not weird.
It's
not weird at all.
We're normal. We're not crazy.
No, this is what they actually believe. You see, you start doing something ironically, you're like, oh, I have an anime girl avatar. Ironically. Oh, I'm just watching anime. Ironically. Oh, that's a good show. Oh, now I want to be an anime girl. No, that's the last step. No, the last step is like the transsexualism thing. Like the intermediary step is what is it, like waifus? You buy an anime body pillow, and then that doesn't do it for you anymore. Why'd that pop? Whatever. That doesn't do it for you anymore. It's an addiction. Addiction is progressive. And we'll get to that. We'll get to progressives. We'll get to how things progress and how we are so progressing as a society. Fuck you.
Fine.
Love us.
Love us.
Like anything, there's do's and don'ts, or
Do-do's.
don'ts. Do. Be very respectful. Like anything, if you're walking into a bar and you see a puppy in a mask, it's not respectful to go up to them, touch them, and just assume that they can be,
Fun.
yeah, puppy molesting. You asked to pet that puppy.
You look like a puppy molester.
Don't be a puppy molester.
Again, they're saying it ironically. What do you think they're going to do after this video's done? No, what do you think they're going to do? Oh, we're just joking about we're just joking about puppy molestation. And look, you're not puppies. I don't, there's more of this. Whatever. We're in too deep at this point.
Don't. disrespect the collar. They should be treated pretty respectfully. This can mean a lot to someone. Totally depends on them. So the best thing to do is to ask.
Tread with caution.
Tread with caution.
A collar usually comes along with a lock if it means ownership, or sometimes it can just come with a trinket or something that hangs on the collar itself, a dog tag or anything like that. But never assume that it is okay to touch someone's collar.
It's not okay. It's not okay. I'm not even leaned over my mic. I need to just sit back. I missed.
Give
Missed the
kisses,
button.
give pets, give whatever the puppy enjoys and finds therapeutic. If that's a treat, if that's positive reinforcement, if that is just communicating to the puppy that they are being a good boy, that is all great and makes the puppy very...
Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Yay me! I'm doing it right! You think that this is just like a role-playing thing? No, that is actually what their brains are doing. They don't know what the fuck they're doing in daily life. They don't understand intuition. They don't understand how to look people in the eye and tell like how they are in a situation, like how they're feeling, and adjusting accordingly to how that person is feeling or how they're coming off. No, they're clueless, and they're using the persona of a puppy to excuse that.
very happy.
Don't play with a puppy's tail, because you wouldn't do that with a real dog. And
You don't have a tail.
dog either. And some are insertables.
What the fuck? This guy just pulled out a tail-shaped dildo. Some are insertable.
Little butt plug attachment in there, actually.
But I really should preview the shit that I plan for the show in advance. And this is what I'm condemned for condemning. That is the number one prerequisite for any young person. Their judgment of you, their assessment of you. Number one, do they tolerate my garbage, my dog tail butt plugs? Do they tolerate other people's? Because, you know, I'm an ally of the dog tail butt plug community.
Shoved up in there. And if you pull on those at a bar and they happen to pop out, the tail's probably not the only thing popping out along with those. And while some tails also come in a belt form, where you can actually loop a belt through there, it's still very uncomfortable to have someone pulling something that's attached to your body at a bar, and it's just disrespectful. Do have fun.
You're going out. You're going out in public like this.
A role play. It's somewhat silly. It's somewhat out there, but it's all about having fun first and foremost.
Don't sniff their butts, because real dogs do that, but human pups prefer their hands or paw shaped.
Stay away from the movie.
I'm gonna throw up. I feel sick to my stomach.
Stay away from the booty.
While you're having fun and playing safely and having sex, even puppies need a safe word. And
Yes, don't sniff. Yeah, don't sniff it. That might remind us what its function is for. That might snap us back to reality. Oh, we're doing it wrong. We're doing it very, very wrong.
the safe word is
Dog bowl.
dog bowl. Appropriate.
Yes. Remember to like, favorite, subscribe. Please write a comment if you like it. We have Facebook pages. Follow us. Do all of that.
Well, only one Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
But follow that, like it. Let us know what you guys want to talk about next week in the comments below, and we will see.
I'd like to write out my. I'm having a thought. I'm having a very suicidal thought right now. But that is not a right word. That is the wrong word that I must use, or else stuff will happen. And how fitting, sheets of rain just started to come down. Puppy play. Progressives fight to ensure that society protects and cherishes the lowest forms of behavior. Now, I don't like to use these political, ideological terms, but it fits. Addiction is progressive. Deviance is progressive. Dysfunction is progressive, as in it goes quickly from one thing to the next. Each thing that came before it was a catalyst for the thing that came after it. In other words, these people, it's too kind of a word for them, they progress social cancer, such as what we just experienced with that hideous piece of audio. They work to grow that which is killing us. It's all in a name. They wish to progress the disease which will render us a corpse. And not just that, an unrecognizable one. Because I think we're already there. Progressivism describes the inevitability of their death cult. We convince our kids that it's fine to have a little bit of sodomy here, a little sodomy there. It's not hurting anyone and it feels good. It's fun. We'll go out to the bars with our tails. That's what they say. Just don't be too extreme or shove it in people's faces, whatever that means. And here we are. The deviants are now pretending to be an animal that's known for eating its own feces. Maybe that's the next step. Or maybe they skip that step altogether and go straight to blowing dog dicks. You know, the ones that are actually dogs, not people. Not the people pretending to be dogs. Every time you show the world these social fire starters in their default state, such as what I just did now, the excuses begin. From young people, they say things like, it's the present year and you shouldn't judge because it doesn't affect you, even though it bothers you enough to talk about it. From older people, you'll hear the same arguments gussied up. They'll say, at least they aren't doing X, Y, Z. At least. That's where we want to be as a society. The lowest common denominator, at least. At least. These are the arguments I hear. And they never ever deviate. Rarely do I hear something beyond these two arguments. It doesn't affect you, and at least. Yeah, that's what we want to be as a people. At least. You defend that which lives a life antithetical to yours. But you will defend them because of the destructive idea that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. It's schoolyard reasoning. Or maybe it's not antithetical. Guess the race of the puppy players. Again, homosexual shucking and jiving might be funny to you when you're 11 and you have the hygiene standards of a rat. But, despite the fact that you've grown up physically, you're developmentally stunted. I've heard every argument, either defending this deviant nonsense or making excuses for it, and every single one of them has come from the mind of a baby-brained. Baby-brained, fill in the blank. I think you all underestimate how deeply entrenched young people are in the sexual deviant cultist ideology. This is what young people believe is worthy of their defense. I see it every day. They're just being who they are. It doesn't affect you. Wow, you're judgmental. As a blank, I believe this. Every day. From the same age range, which I gave you earlier. 14 to 50. It's everyone. But young people, they're the ones who mouth off the most. They're the junkyard dogs of this. They bark and bite. They keep you at bay. At least that's what they think they're doing. Young people, they're not only pro-deviant, they're militantly so. I see examples of this all the time. They go to college, they get a grade, and they think of themselves as geniuses. And who's telling them this? Their teachers, their professors, people whose careers are predicated on the avoidance of actual work. These blobs of afterbirth belong to the most celebrated occupation in our society for no legitimate reason. So their opinions matter more to us. These are the unworthy shepherds. Because parents don't know how to do their job. And what are their opinions? What are their opinions? Be a leech, be a disease vector. Do lots of drugs because weed cures cancer. Weed, dude, weed. Professors and children alike. And the kids under their guidance, the guidance of teachers, believe every bit of it. This in tandem with television, internet, and film. We started off with a film, talking about a film. This creates and reinforces the social orthodoxy. And kids will enforce these norms upon one another. Every day I see some bullshit from some kid on social media. I'm not exaggerating. They say how gay is great and how they have lots of trans friends who aren't like that. Whatever that means. Like that school bus Vine that was in Vine Marathon Volume 9. How it's like this girl, and she's got short hair and it's dyed blue. And she's like, "Oh, that mean? What's in your pants? What's in your pants? I'm going to pull out a 12-inch dick and throw it in your face," or something like that. And all the kids shriek with delight. These are who they're talking about. And people tell me I'm the one who has too much of a fixation on this issue. Those who remain in their Mein Kampf anime bubbles, those who avert their eyes telling me that I shouldn't see what I'm seeing because they don't see it, my eyes go everywhere. I have nothing to lose other than my emotional comfort. You live in willful ignorance, so keep the opinions enabled by that ignorance to yourself. We're doing the work that a parent adult should have done, who should have said, watch after your kids, make sure they don't do this for this reason. Many valid reasons, just practical reasons. Higher likelihood for domestic violence, STDs, depression, suicide. Quit encouraging your children to be deviants. But of course, if you bring up the statistical likelihoods, they'll be like, that ain't gonna be me. That ain't gonna be me, because you can't put spiritual damage in a spreadsheet. We have no intuitive thinkers. Because I think most people have autism at this point. And that's sincere. That is a sincere thing I'm saying. I'm not saying like, oh, that's autistic. Oh, the cancer autistic. No. As in incapable of relating to people, incapable of intuitive thought, that kind of autism. I think most people born now, they're doomed to a life of that. A life free of what makes up a large part of humanity. Actually being a human. Young people and their teachers. So they don't actually have parents. So instead of wanting to be mothers and fathers, they want to be teachers. Young people want to be teachers. You have no knowledge, no wisdom, no insight to impart. God willing, teaching jobs will be replaced by robots in the next decade. But until then, what do you, 19-year-old retard, have to say that is worth a middle-class salary? I'm sure you have a lot of knowledge on how to fit a cue ball up your rectum, but the taxpayer could find a much more affordable way to impart such important knowledge to their children that they're paying you to indoctrinate. Yeah, just instead of letting your kids hang out around teachers, just open up your web browser, type in BuzzFeed, and let your kid browse BuzzFeed for a few hours. And then they'll be like, "Mom, Dad, I learned what yiffing is. You want to hear about yiffing?" There's no difference between BuzzFeed and public school when it comes to the spiritual and moral direction your children will take under its influence. But how many people among us believe that influence is a good thing? It's difficult to put an exact number on it, but it's a lot. That's all I know. Should I read the email that says business inquiry first? No, I already read it. You never know what's going to be a legitimate business inquiry. That one, however, is not. I did some research and I'll say this. There's a lot of money to be made if you are a parasitic middleman. If you don't actually produce anything, if you don't actually offer a product or a service, there's a lot of money to be made by selling people this dream of fortune and fame through YouTube. So we will not begin with the business inquiry email. We will begin with this, which is a link to an article that I just pulled up here. Thank you for sending me this. It says, incest and necrophilia should be legal according to youth branch of Swedish Liberal People's Party. Now let me read that again. Incest and necrophilia should be legal according to youth branch of Swedish Liberal People's Party. The second, the headline underneath that, or the line underneath that says, that, and this is a quote from them, incest can be considered unusual and disgusting, but the law cannot stem from it being disgusting. Why not? Disease is disgusting. There are laws against knowingly spreading disease. We all agree that disease is disgusting due to the things it causes. And I like the language there. It can be considered unusual and disgusting. Oh, just that. Unusual. And a nice pig-faced woman taking up my entire monitor. SUF, Stockholm President Cecilia Johnson. Incest between siblings and necrophilia should be legalized, a branch of the Swedish Liberal People's Party has argued. The Stockholm branch of the party's youth wing, LUF, voted on the controversial motion at its annual meeting on Sunday. God sent the blank. Fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. This is... It exists on a screen now. It exists on paper. These words. But it has to originate in the hearts of those who end up expressing it. And God sees what's in your heart. And he acts accordingly. It called for the repeal of several laws to make consensual sex between brothers and sisters aged over... I'm going to repeat that. Listen up, everyone. It called for the repeal of several laws to make consensual sex between brothers and sisters aged over 15 legal, as well as allowing people to bequeath their bodies for intercourse after death without fearing the perpetrator would be prosecuted. I love you so much. I want you to have me even after I'm dead. This is what animals do. When their horny levels are over 9,000, haha, funny, haha, we all know that. Let's put aside the jokes. When animals are horny, they'll fuck anything. Dead or alive. And Swedes? The youth wing of this party in Sweden? They want to express that. They want to engage in some dead puppy play. Cecilia Johnson, president of LUF Stockholm, told some newspaper counter-incest legislation amounted to morality law, adding, "These laws protect no one right now." Oh, but it doesn't protect the integrity of your society, the fabric of it, the humanity of it, how people perceive it. And people bitch at me all the time when I talk shit about what's going on in European nations, because I'm not Europe, and I get it. You don't like it when some outsider talks shit about your homeland, but, I talk shit about mine all the time, yet nobody complains about that. I make the same criticisms. I'm not saying anything different. I'm not holding them to a different standard. And I get it. You have this bizarre nationalist impulse, which, look around you. Do you really see that your fellow tribesmen see life through the same lens as you? Because for me, that has never been the case. And maybe I'm just unlucky. But if you look at the world honestly, think to yourself, do I have anything in common with that which I defend? Just be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. You'll be surprised at what you'll find. And continuing, I understand that incest can be considered unusual and disgusting, but the law cannot stem from it being disgusting. Again, yes it can. Who's saying that it can't? You? You fucking pig. The LUF also voted to support the legislation of sexual acts with the corpse. And again, I know it's wrong to compare an undignified creature with a pig because at least a pig has a personality. I know. I should call you a fucking rat. But your face resembles a pig, so that's where my mind's going. The LUF also supported the legislation of sexual acts with a corpse on the condition that the person consented while they were still alive. Miss Johnson said, "You should get to decide what happens to your body after you die. And if it happens to be that someone wants to bequeath their body to a museum for research, or if they want to bequeath to someone for sex, then it should be okay. Consenting adults. Consenting adults. Consenting adults." That's I'm going to call that the Northern European morality now. Now I know where it comes from. The Central Liberal People's Party disagreed, however, with spokesperson Adam Alfredson telling Express the proposals were nothing like the Mother Party endorses. Well, that's what the Mother Party is going to be endorsing in 20 years. Incest is and should remain illegal, he added. We think it will continue to be illegal to use a dead man's body in a sexual way. Oh, we just think. Not like we are sure. No, we think. Meanwhile, a former Swedish Liberal MP, Carl B. Hamilton, took to Facebook to dismiss the Youth Wing's proposals as a publicity stunt concocted by nitwits. Well, at least somebody's an adult. At least. Is that what we want to be as a people? At least. Again, we say at least. At least. We always want to find the positive in things. No. We're not going to be at least. We're not going to be lowest common denominator. That's what we're going to accept. No. Do you have standards or do you not? When the rubber meets the road, when push comes to shove, do you have boundaries? And I'm afraid that most of us don't. And we will react very harshly to those that do. The Independent has contacted Ms. Johnson for a response. It's not the first time similar proposals have been raised in Europe. Of course. In 2014, the German Ethics Council also called for an end to the criminalization of incest between siblings after examining the case of a man who was jailed for having 4 children with his sister. Good. The council argued that the risk of disability in children was not sufficient to warrant a law putting couples in tragic situations, and that decriminalizing incest would not fuel the spread of the very rare practice. The majority of the German Ethics Council is not... wait, hold on. I've said before that in English-speaking nations, we tend to fixate on the exception. We tend to fixate on the exceptional because that's what's drilled into our heads. That's the very nature of our language. We are too focused on exceptions. No, you don't have to begin a sentence can begin with and or, whatever. Some basic grammar school rule. It is a reflection of how a people think. The language a collective uses is generally how they operate, how they tick. But here we are seeing that it's not just an English thing. It's not just an English-speaking thing. I'm going to read that again. The German Ethics Council argued that the risk of disability in children was not sufficient to warrant a law putting couples in tragic situations, and that decriminalizing incest would not fuel the spread of the very rare practice. The majority of the German Ethics Council is of the opinion that it is not appropriate for criminal law to preserve a social taboo. A statement said, well, look, they're not all incest cases. Not all. And these are Germans. Yeah, they speak English, but that's not their first language. They have their own language. And more than one nation speaks it. This notion is liable to be found in multiple locations. Maybe this fixation on the exception is rooted from language. Or perhaps this is a genetic expression. I don't know which one it is, but I think it is a question worth exploring. So thank you for sending me that article. That was eye-opening. And my eyes are, I don't know how, it's like your eyes, they open, they close, they open, they close. Well, now they're open. Open even wider than they were however many minutes ago when we were doing puppy play. So, next. And it goes. Hello, CF. Maybe it's just me, but I've noticed a lot of stress in your voice during some of your more recent shows over the past few weeks. I'm sure you know this well, but it's important to take some time away from staring into the abyss for too long, and take some time to enjoy the few aspects of life that are still enjoyable. It might not sound like it, but I enjoy this. And somebody brought this up in the comments recently, that they listened to, I think the most recent show, not this one obviously, but the previous episode. They listened to, I think, like one of the episodes in the 50s, and then they jumped to this one, and they said they noticed that I sounded a lot more lively. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna check that out for myself. I thought that to myself, and I did, and they were right. I was shocked at how low I sounded. Like I had no energy whatsoever. It was pathetic. So I'm feeling a lot better these days. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's stress so much as it is passion or urgency. Urgency is an important one. And it's something I'm working on. It's something I'm working on conveying more through my voice. So, but I'm fine. All things considered, I'm probably better than I've been in a long time, if I'm being honest about it. So, I appreciate your concern, and there are things in my life. This doesn't consume me. I am able to get away from this. It doesn't follow me around. And if it did, I probably wouldn't do it. So, skip the rest of this email if you would like, as it is more of a matter of personal opinion and a story. No, I like these. These provide a nice contrast to the rest of what I do. When I was younger, I was heavily involved in martial arts. I'd argue that if you could find a good gym or dojo, it can have a countless number of benefits on a person's life. This is assuming you don't end up in a place that tries scamming you or surrounded by a bunch of beefed up douchebags. Shortly after I finished high school and started college, I ended up neglecting a lot of my training for a while. Only recently I have become involved in the martial arts again and have felt much better than I have in a very long time. I think it's a good mix of mental and physical training, one of the few activities that still carries some morals. I suggest everyone finds a healthy hobby that isn't something degenerate. For me, it's martial arts. For someone else, it can be something entirely different, as long as it isn't taking pause loads to the face or something along those lines. It's important to remember to live in spite of everything terrible going on in recent years. Absolutely. Balance is key. You gotta find that thing, because the idle hands and idle mind, idle anything, that's the devil's. That's the devil's workshop. That's the devil's toolkit. And you start getting into hobbies if you're idle too long. You start getting into weird stuff. And then you're like, oh, this is actually good. I never leave my bedroom. I'm in a relationship with a 2D anime girl. My life is great. This is not a pit of despair I'm in at all. That's what people start thinking. You live in a crater that's big enough, you don't even know that you're in a crater. You live in a hole that's big enough, you don't know that you're in a hole. Because you have no point of reference, and that's what the idle mind does. Next. Note of an alt-right homo seeking repentance / 30 years a homo. I'm always very nice when I receive emails from homo this, lesbian that. You know that. You've listened to my show long enough. But I'm not making this up. Note of an alt-right homo seeking repentance / 30 years a homo. Which, by the way, in that episode 70 thing that I did, where I laid all of my cards out, I didn't mention that another prominent alt-right homo called homophobia Jewish. So, shalom. Hey CF, your show has proven to be, for the most part, provide the spiritual catalyst and antidote to the disease of which I have suffered. Your work has assisted and indeed provided the penultimate impetus in the turning away from 30 years of homo. That which you speak of in such clear, uncompromising detail has had a direct, visceral response in me. It has both brought certain revulsion in me, a kind of detachment from, yet realization of what I have in part previously engaged with. Thus, your shows and what you speak of have induced in me a kind of spiritual crisis. This last comes upon having physically removed myself from all that was previous, while your shows brought about a final impetus to seek repentance. Realizing that I had left God behind at last for the most part, where he had once figured strongly in earlier life before late schooling, before liberal arts college, and then a death style of homosexuality, my questions to you are, how do I repent? How do I know that I am truly repentant? How do I stay on, as it were, the straight and narrow? What do I replace the addiction of that death style with? And, is there any more? Alright, well, thank you very much for the question, and thank you for sharing it with us. And I'll start off by saying that, and this is something that I didn't think I would need to say, but apparently a lot of people just don't understand. Not you specifically, but just something that I need to say every once in a while is that I'm not of God. I'm not the son of God, cousin of God. No, I'm not any of that. All right. I'm not divine. I'm not a prophet. I'm not even a theologian. I'm a simple person. I believe in the divinity of Christ. I believe he said some very grand things, but he backed them up. And that's what I believe. I also believe that God never let me down, man has. Any creation of man that I put any faith in, I've been disappointed in it, and that is a human impulse, to put your faith in something. I see people all the time telling me, or saying these really nasty things to me. And it comes from this disappointment. Like I said something they thought I shouldn't say, because they started assuming shit that I would and wouldn't say. It's really unhealthy. And I think that our atomized culture encourages this perception of people. You wouldn't believe some of the hatred people express towards others because their faith was not rewarded. It's insane. And you might not even intend to do it, but, again, that's me. How do I repent? How do I repent? Well, let's use an example from your email. I share in vivid detail a lot of this gross, horrible stuff that we as a society, as a culture, value. By bringing this information to light, by your hearing of it, you had that visceral reaction. You felt that deep, deep feeling of, wow, this is really wrong. This is so wrong. That right there, your reaction to that was repentance. You heard the information, you reflected it back to your own life, which you then related to the Word of God and what He said. And you did all that without really thinking about it, without intellectualizing it. It was visceral. That was your heart saying, God, I am sorry. I am so deeply, deeply sorry. That's repentance. What's in your heart? Do you feel guilt, sorrow, regret over your actions? That's repentance. That's not some socially constructed thing. That comes straight from God. And if you keep that feeling in your heart, if you learn from that feeling, that's how you stay repentant. That's how you know you're truly repentant. People think that faith is this intellectual thing. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. People think it's like college. No, it's like trade school. You got to go live it. That's what faith is. You got to live how God said to live. And you got to do that without having done it before. Without knowing what the track record of that is. For yourself, anyway. That's what faith is. And once you start living in accordance to that, you'll start to realize, man, this is the right way to be. And what do you replace the addiction of that death style with? There are a lot of things. There are a lot of positive, healthy things you can do with that. And I don't think that you should be looking at it as replacing an addiction with another addiction. Addiction is bad no matter what. Addiction to worldly things will never lead you to any good place. Rather, do something positive, and let God filter it. Run whatever you do through the filter of God. That's what I said to myself when I started doing this. I said, God, it's yours. This isn't mine, this is yours. And I had done some other stuff before this where I didn't give it to God, and it failed. But that's all I have to say. Thank you for the email, and best of luck to you in the future. Next, I'm the hydrogeology guy from last week's episode. I liked your response and had something to add to it. We on the counterculture would be wise to at least examine conspiracy theories, whether they be chemtrails, global warming, or water fluoridation. Not because they are literally true, most are not, but because they reveal a deeper human truth, that the society we live in is very sick, and it is not sick because of random chance or acts of God. It is sick because of the specific choices made by people who live in it. All the best. I agree with that. I don't think that we should take conspiracy theories as entirely literal, but the subjects that are contained within the conspiracy theory, somebody's jumping to a very strange conclusion after gathering some information that might be true. But, you know, if it leads us to investigate certain subjects, certain things that happen in the world, if anything else, we learn a little bit more about it. Maybe it's not as interesting as aliens making crop circles, but, you know, things are pretty ordinary. Not everything is mind-blowing. Not everything is exciting. Not everything is groundbreaking. And thank God it's not. Life would be... Because if everything's exciting, if everything is, wow, oh my God, like, oh God, the kiwi strawberry sangria is so amazing. If you say that, you are in some serious trouble. And I think I'm remembering that right, but regardless, it was on BuzzFeed. That's what people get worked up about. What I'm trying to say is that it's okay to be ordinary. It's okay if not everything has some very dramatic, exciting conclusion. But don't treat the ordinary as if it's exciting and life-changing. Some people, they're so desperate to feel something, it's sad. Just go read BuzzFeed, click through BuzzFeed and see what I'm talking about. Next, you're doing an excellent job in pointing out the inconsistencies in the politically correct narrative. It's refreshing to hear someone state it as you do. I'll try to keep this email brief, but the content I'd like to cover is not easily stated in terse terms. Feel free to disregard or just read for leisure if this is too long. In Common Filth Radio episode 77, one atheist commenter stated, "But science gave my vision back, not my church that I used to attend." While I can understand this commenter's line of reasoning, it struck a dissonant chord with me. While studying aerospace engineering in college, I was able to work as a scientist in the space physics field, which opened my eyes to what science actually is and how it has been abused by those that do not understand it. Dr. Werner von Braun, a leading rocket scientist and chief architect of the Saturn V moon rocket, made a speech on the religious implications of space exploration before the last two Apollo flights, which has a final statement of the following. Quote, "Science and religion are not antagonists. On the contrary, they are sisters. While science tries to learn more about the creation, religion tries to better understand the creator. While through science man tries to harness the forces of nature around him, through religion he tries to harness the force of nature within him." Unquote. Science is only a way for man to observe what has been created around him, not for a way to man to dictate what the universe is and isn't. This is proven time and time again by scientific models being superseded by new observations, like the gravitational pull keeping the Earth spinning around the sun and not the opposite way around, or the time shift seen by objects traveling at different accelerations, as opposed to a fixed time system. Because science is only man's quantification and attempt at interpretation of the physical, dissociating religion and science traps those who understand neither into assuming their point of view has the facts, quote-unquote facts, while the other view doesn't. Both need to acknowledge one another and view each other in the same light, or they both they become self-serving. The scientific prone to create a hell on earth, while the religious creating a Garden of Eden mentality without the Garden of Eden ecosystem. Probably a better way to sum it up. Just like the Old and New Testament is an observation of God and Jesus by his disciples, science is an observation of the physical universe by scientists. Both revolve around human observations, on one the physical and the other on the spiritual, which must accompany one another or it leads man to a naive view of the universe. So no, while religion couldn't fix the commenter's vision, that's not what religion is for. Science allows us to fix the commenter's eyes. Religion allows us to view why the commenter's eyes were able to be fixed. And in today's advanced society, where most people don't see the work that actually goes into a final product of service and do not care about the processes of getting there, it would make sense to praise the conclusion without understanding the steps in the intermediate. While this seemed reasonable in my head, it might not translate well in writing. I hope this makes sense. Thanks for your time. Keep on keeping on. I think this makes an excellent deal of sense, and I hope that everybody else does too, because this is a really good email. And I'm going to tell everyone, if you're leaving this on in the background right now, no big deal if you zoned out, you weren't really listening to that. Go back a few minutes and listen to this email, please, because it's excellent. I don't have much to add other than this. I think this email is important because it goes beyond, well, the church is responsible for early scientific research. Very important. That's a very important fact, but we understand now further the relationship between science and religion other than who funded what, who's responsible for what. A very good quote. And there's a video link here from Dr. Werner von Braun, and I will look at this after I'm done recording. So thank you very much. Next. Hey, CF, found some webums of your Tumblristas series on 8chan, and like everyone else who writes in, watched the whole series, then found Common Filth Radio. I listened to a couple of the most recent ones. Falling for the Trap had me laughing hard, but now I'm going through the 50s, and I heard on 56 that you live in the Socialist Republic of California. No, it's actually the Gay People's Republic of Mexifornia. Gotta get it right. Wish you strength in walking through the valley of death and social justice. Keep up the good work. I'll be sure to write as soon as I have a question worth asking and answering. Well, thank you for your concern and thank you for listening. I'm fine. Everyone thinks that I'm going crazy because of the crazy content I put out there, but that's the world we live in. I'm making a point about the world we live in, not about specific people, maybe groups of people I'm making a point about, but I'm fine. I'll be all right. And next, flamboyant German politician busted with crystal meth. Guess which group he was an advocate of? The career-long standing Greens MP Volker Beck has taken a hit after he was caught in Berlin with a baggie of crystal meth. Beck has been known as an advocate of gay rights, as well as for his controversial views on drug laws and sex with minors. Oh, it's like poetry. We're talking about Germans and Swedes. Ridiculous. Kids growing up now think stereotypes are lies, rather than a general behavior a given group of people engage in. They just think like stereotypes, that's just a lie invented by the white cishet patriarchy. And here you go, a homosexual addicted to meth, and he believes in, he's probably a member of a German NAMBLA, which probably has some seats in parliament. Do Germans have parliament? I don't know. But there's more to the email. Maybe he was also praising Satan and taking pause loads bareback while diddling those kitties. Side note, the age of consent in Germany is already 14, so his views on sex with minors would have been for sex with literal children. Yeah, how low can you go? How low can you go? At a certain point, child brides. Is that the world you want to live in? At least they're married. With this information in mind, the words I said before ring even more true. You can't trust gay white nationalists because of the age of consent laws. It is absolute madness what people who really should know better tolerate and promote. People get a little bit of mainstream attention and they lose their minds. Next, hey CF, a lot of the time on your show, you say that couples should only have vaginal sex. This is a legit question, hear me out. Why do I keep getting these emails and questions in greater frequency? I don't get it. As long as the sex act is finished within the vagina and there is an opportunity for conception, do you see anything wrong with other acts, i.e. oral, anal, etc.? What the fuck? Used as foreplay? Why you're like, oh, I love you so much. Let me play with your anus. What the? I was raised Catholic, and the church's position is that other sex acts are okay as long as climax occurs in the vagina and there's a chance for reproduction. And that's always seemed pretty reasonable to me. I'm really glad I wasn't raised Catholic because, look, this is nothing personal. This is a common thread I'm seeing amongst Catholics. You all are very sexually schizophrenic. It's strange. So what do you think the limits are for what kinds of sexual behaviors a married hetero couple can partake in? Why? Why the anus? What love is to be had where poop comes out? Disease, filth, unclean. Things that should not be involved in a marriage. Next. I'm a senior in high school at the moment, and my question isn't about the educational system, but rather the people in it. Before I begin, however, I just got done watching your latest Tumblristas video too, and I'd like to say I agree with the message / title of your video. I agree that children are the future of this country. That doesn't mean the future is bound to be bright because of that fact. I'll start off by saying we were reading Brave New World yesterday in my British literature class, and we got to the infamous garden scene, where the children are allowed to frolic in the garden naked and explore one another. The teacher lectured us for a bit, and she asked why Huxley would incorporate this into his novel. What follows is not the climax of a bad 4chan green text story. This is modern-day academia. This question prompted the absolutely disgusting answers, such as because it's in the 1930s and he thought sex was bad at the time, it's 2016, guys, and the unforgettable comment of, I found the scene to promote rape. The boys are sexualizing the girls and they're just succumbing to it because that's all they know at the time. Oh, and someone made the humorous comment about Huxley being sexually confused. I was the only person to give the answer that Huxley was using sex as a method of control and instilling to the children to succumb to their urges, to become literal animals that were subject to control a lot easier than normal human beings nowadays would be. The answer was subject to praise by the teacher who said that I was the only person to get the point, and she compared it to sex education in schools today. Letting children exploring the topic of sex and sexuality can only lead to abnormal behaviors. And this comment was met by disdain from some of my peers. Oh yeah, that's not surprising, but good on your teacher. I'm sure that they exist, good ones, sane ones, but it's good to hear an example firsthand, you know. They argued that sex is to be taught in schools due to the nature of preventing STDs and to encourage healthy and protective sex since it is such a normal part in our society. They, the children of this nation, regardless of their age, they are still children just as I am one, acknowledge the fact that sexualization is okay, that people recognize that sex is commonplace, that monogamy is outdated, bit of a stretch there, but it was implied, and they still can't seem to recognize that at least half of the things that I just stated are in Brave New World's utopia, quote-unquote utopia, and that they're merely living in the prequel to it. My question isn't as follows, herder, when will we have a nuclear holocaust, or a day of the rope when, i.e. garbage we've heard all too much, spewed by either the commenters on your video from alt-right forums, or from people who claim to be disillusioned with the society that they live in and proclaim their intelligence based upon the fact that they listen to anyone with a contrarian viewpoint. Rather, since we live in an age that children are able to fully recognize the fact that their world is sexualized and are subjects to the very forms of control that they read about in this novel, thinking voting with your genitals, succumbing to your basic impulses, what will be the after effects of all of this? Where will this slippery slope we seem to be falling down lead us? When will we as a nation say collectively, unanimously, this is too much and attempt to fill the crater left by the sexual revolution? Thank you so much for your time. I truly hope you read through all of this and not brush it off as a rhetorical question. And may God bless you in everything you do. Also, on a tangent note, I'd like to thank you for recommending Kickstarter TV to me. Great stuff. The timing of this email is perfect because this week I was just introduced to something called Libido Dominandi, Sexual Liberation and Political Control. It's a book by E. Michael Jones, and I listened to a bit of an interview on YouTube that he did about the book. You can find it. It's about an hour long. Just type in Libido Dominandi. I'm sure you'll be able to find it. And he talked about it. I was actually introduced to this, not by name, but I heard it in a Nobody TM video about how I think it was the Israelis. They hijacked Palestinian television signals and broadcasted pornography, hardcore pornography, into Palestinian homes. And I just pulled this up to double check. This is from antiwar.com. It says, the leering ugliness of the Israelis' Easter blitzkrieg is darkly illustrated by the news that having marched into Ramallah, the IDF prepared a special Easter television broadcast for this historically Christian city. Porn movies and programs in Hebrew are being broadcast by Israeli troops who have taken over 3 Palestinian television stations of Ramallah. Irate residents of the besieged West Bank town have told AFP the soldiers started broadcasting porn clips considered extremely offensive by most Muslims intermittently this afternoon from the Al-Watan, Amwaj, and Al-Sharak channels, the residents said. The pornographic movie started on Al-Watan television at around 3:30 p.m. One 34-year-old Palestinian mother named Rima told AFP, I have 6 children at home. They have nowhere to go with what is going on here and can't even watch TV, she said angrily. It's not healthy, really. I think the Israelis want to mess with our young men's heads, she said. And this was back in April 2002. So there you go. Pornography is used in warfare to distract and distort the minds of future soldiers. Young men. But in the interview that I mentioned, they brought up a really good point that we view everything in this context of freedom, especially sexuality. We think that expressing a deviant sexuality is the highest expression of freedom. And if you are against that, or if you want to prohibit that, you're anti-freedom. Which in the context of this aspect of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, why would the Israelis want to liberate the Palestinians? If pornography and sexuality, unhinged sexuality, were this great liberating thing, wouldn't that be advantage Palestinians? Come on. None of us are that stupid to believe that. So, to address your question, I'll read it again. Since we live in an age that children are able to fully recognize the fact that their world is sexualized and are subject to the very forms of control that they read about in this novel, what will be the after effects of all of this? Where will this slippery slope we seem to be falling down lead us? When will we as a nation say collectively, unanimously, this is too much? An attempt to fill the crater left by the sexual revolution. Well, it's obvious where it will lead us. It will give us even more psychological damage, more spiritual damage, more death, more disease, more distorted lenses through which people view the world. But the second part of that, when will we as a nation say collectively, unanimously, this is too much? Never. Never as long as we view our slavery to vice as freedom. Next. Hello, CF. Although I am not a long-time listener, I am a big fan of your content. I started listening to your show 2 weeks ago and have managed to make it from episode 1 to episode 40. I plan to listen to all of them. With this as a preface, I would like to apologize if you have answered this question in any of your more recent shows, but I'm facing a bit of a dilemma. I'm a straight white male and have been friends with another white male since grade school. The issue comes in that he has developed into a proud liberal and calls himself bisexual. As I grow older and move further right from libertarianism to traditionalism, he seems to move further left. Although we don't talk about politics often, when the subject does come up, he simply mocks me and has no desire to listen to why I believe what I believe. We're both 18 and will be entering college soon. He plans to pursue a worthless humanities degree while I plan to pursue the skill of computer programming and engineering. We get along quite well, but I have come to disagree with many of his life decisions. I'm not preachy and never ever bother to tell him that I disapprove. I just avoid any serious subject and continue joking around with him. This is not a healthy friendship. And that he calls himself bisexual, that's enough to disqualify, in my book. But there's more email here. I'll read it. My question is, do you think I should bother trying to convince him of my beliefs, or at the very least explain to him that a useless humanities degree is not a good path to go down? I would hate to ever come across as preachy, but the way he is going now, I don't see us having much common ground down the road. Please keep doing what you're doing. I've made sure to use your Amazon affiliate link numerous times. Thank you very much. And I'm glad there is someone as intelligent as you creating thought-provoking content that isn't based on the false pretenses of egalitarianism and hippie kumbaya culture. Well, thank you very much. And I will say that to anybody that is curious about my work, probably not listening in this far, listen from the newest to the earliest. That's the best way to go, because nobody ever says to me, "Yeah, I miss your old stuff." No, nobody ever says that to me, which means that it's always getting better. And I want people to start with the best, the latest and greatest. But you clearly have a more future-oriented outlook than your friend. He thinks he's going to die when he turns 21. He thinks like he's just going to stop existing. And you know better than that. He has a very, rabbit kind of mentality. And maybe he's the kind of rabbit that believes he's a rabbit and he likes rabbit girls with tits. I don't know, but he does say he's bisexual, so maybe he's like trisexual and his third sexuality is zoosexuality. At your age, friendships are incredibly fleeting. You're not going to have them for the rest of your life. It is so unlikely that will happen. And this friend of yours, he's a nobody. He's not going to be in your life 10 years from now. It seems like an incredibly one-sided friendship. And that's not healthy. And you can't help those who want disease. So the best you can do is live your life, make good decisions, allow yourself to be a positive example, and if he wants to follow that, great. If he wants to repent, great. If not, well, nothing you could do about it. So thank you for the email. And this just in, weekend estimates for the American box office. Number one movie, Zootopia, with $73.7 million on opening weekend. Well, congratulations, parents. I hope you enjoy your children and their fursuit weddings. Maybe it'll be a genderqueer furry wedding. That'll be great. That'll bring a tear to your eye, make you so proud. All right, next. I know I just wrote in a question earlier tonight, but I came across something that really floored me and had to check if you were aware of it. It is a write-up by a genderqueer atheist about what gender dysphoria feels like. If you take the time to read through it, each sign is something everyone can relate to. Depression and mood changes during puberty, etc. This wouldn't be so shocking except for the fact that this is being regularly used on subreddits such as r/asktransgender to help people figure out if they are trans. Essentially, it is being used to convince vulnerable tweens/teens that their normal hormonal feelings are actually signs they ought to try and become the opposite sex. Please give your thoughts on this. Sorry for asking two questions in the same night. No problem. And, you said it all. It's puberty. What these kids are assigning as gender dysphoria, this means I'm a man, this means I'm a woman, is fucking puberty. And we are all too happy to enable this delusion. And everyone said it says it doesn't matter, Let's see how many, people are on r/asktransgender. What was that one again? I'm just going to copy and paste it. Nope, not going to stop recording to type in things. 23,955. Now that's just on, let's take away r/ask transgender. Let's do r/transgender. Transgender subreddit, 20,000. That was just trans. That's even less. But regardless, you see everybody like, I'm trans. I get like half the comments on the Vine marathons, I have to get rid of them. Because they're like, I'm trans, or I have a trans friend. It's like 50% of kids believe this about themselves. And even more, well, not even more, but even more disturbing is that a lot of these kids, they convince their parents that take me to the doctor and take me to a doctor that'll put me on hormone replacement therapy. So you have a pharmaceutical industry, another industry, the entertainment industry, preying on these kids, convincing them that, oh, you're going through puberty? Actually, that means you're trans. You're feeling all this weird stuff? That means you're trans. There's one Vine that I found that's all like, ooh, when you have your period on your masculine days. They're calling their hormonal imbalance a masculine day. You're starting your period. You're not in a right frame of mind. It's sick, and our entire culture accepts this shit as valid. Every time you see some trans person making an ass out of themselves, somebody justifies like, they make real trans people look bad. As if their delusion about puberty, them mistaking puberty for something else, that doesn't make them look bad? I guess apparently not, because people are too stupid to realize it. People are too stupid to realize the fundamental premise of quote-unquote gender dysphoria. It's a lie. It is a lie. And it's promoted by single moms, dads who allow their women to lead them around, guidance counselors, teachers, everyone. The warm, fuzzy Facebook-like clickbait we enable, and the lives we ruin, we derail. Next, and I just realized we haven't gotten to Reddit questions yet. Man, this is going to be another 2-hour episode, isn't it? Thank you so much for your podcast to listen to. I would like to ask, have you ever heard of the Basques? And if you had, what do you think of them? Thanks for reading this. I was going to eat Basque food when I was in Idaho a few months back, but I never got around to it. I ran out of time. So I have heard of them. I have heard of that group of people, but no opinion. No opinion at all. Next, Sodomites. Sodomites originally referred to the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, the insensate, immoral animals of the land which God obliterated with such ferocity, it turned all who looked upon that moment of destruction into a pillar of salt. Of course, you know that Sodomites are best known for the giant male rape mob that formed outside of Lot's house with the intent on ravaging the two outsiders who had entered into the town, the two angels of God. However, did you recall exactly what they said in response to Lot's pleas for them to stop their evil? After pleading with them so very hard, the Sodomite hordes goes on to yell, and they said, "Stand back." Then they said, "This one came in to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them." So they pressed hard against the man Lot, and came near to break down the door. Genesis 19:9. Another translation states, they proclaimed, "This one came in as an alien, and already he is acting like a judge. Now we will treat you worse than them. This fellow came to sojourn. He has come to the judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them." Sound familiar? Yes, CF, this is indeed the true form of man apart from God, the absolute embodiment of man given over to his fallen nature, the true face of the reprobate. Even as they form a mob, young and old alike, even as they swarm a single house with the sole intent on viciously raping two outsiders, whose sole crime was being outsider men, even as they proudly announce their wicked intention as though it was the simple nature of things. They demand, you don't judge. And if you do judge, if you do so much as present them with the truth of their behavior, even in anxious pleas before their unified might, then for that crime of judging, they will deal worse with you than the victims they came for. Of course, you know what happens next. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them, and shut the door. And they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they became weary trying to find the door. Genesis 19:10-11. Even after being blinded by the two men whom they altogether had desired to ruin with venal carnality, the brutal miracle proving first that their targets were more than human, and second that they, the attackers, were now visibly blind, they groped for the door. Yes, they became exhausted trying to find the door to Lot's house. The Sodomites were so vile, so truly evil, that even after being blinded by angels, they still clamored for the door to their would-be victim's house, and to the point of exhaustion. This is incredible, CF. Don't you see? It's not that the homosexual rights advocates, aka pedophiles, and the spiritually dead / utter immoral propagandists are merely ripping scriptural words out of context for their own ends when they scream don't judge. They are in fact showing you their absolutely desperate wickedness full on. They are, without even realizing it, showing their wicked ties to their obliterated predecessors. Don't call them faggots, it's not correct. In reference to them, in reference to their ilk and those lunatics who promote their agenda, i.e. genital mutilation as sex change, gender fluidity, etc., call them sodomites. It's the proper terminology. It is truly what they have made themselves to be. Well, that word, faggot, it refers to a bundle of sticks. You see, alone these people are easily broken, but together, they're nothing but fire starters. And you see this, I see this. I criticize a beloved homosexual personality and everybody freaks the fuck out. As if that's the only person I've ever criticized, ever. And the sodomites like you described. You can see this behavior even to this day. Anybody who questions them, they're made public enemy number one. Like that one football player a few years ago. He played for the Niners, I believe. It was like during the Super Bowl he said this, like Super Bowl Media Week. He said something, about like not wanting gay people in the locker room. I think he said something like can't be with that sweet stuff or something like that. And they made him undergo sensitivity training. Even if he has this opinion, he's probably leading a life antithetical to homosexuality. So you're right. He lives a life antithetical to it. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't looked enough into it. But it's not that. It's that he says, that's not the right way to be. That's what gets them. They thirst for blood. And this is why you can't negotiate it. This is why you can't, we gotta have a nuanced view about it because this person and look, they have this opinion that we have. Yay! Because the nature of these people, as we can see in this historical document, and it is a historical document, it has never, ever changed. The nature of them and their followers have never changed. They're possessed by just unimaginable things. And it makes a lot more sense now. It's not logical. It's not logical why people are so passionate about defending gay rights. Why every kid, and their parents on Facebook, I'm for gay rights, but how dare you be homophobic? It's sick. People want to take you down over this. And it just goes to show you how deeply controlling deviant sexuality is. How enslaving it is. So with that being said, we will move over to r/common filth and do questions from the question and comment thread, which is up every week. I leave it up for a week, and if I don't get to it, the 1 week, just copy and paste it into the next week's thread. But you probably already knew that, so we'll get on with it. ACF first time commenting, decided to play Sonic R on my old ass GameCube while listening to the Common Filth radios I hadn't watched yet, since it looked like the kind of game I could play while paying attention to your show. Hadn't played a Sonic game in a few years now, so every time I see Sonic the Hedgehog, I think of you. Hedgehog. That's what I said, didn't I? Can you feel the sunshine? Does it brighten up your day? Anyway, do I have a problem? I do have a problem with... you don't have a problem with me. I do have a problem you might be able to help me out with. Though it's kind of hard to put into words since I'm not a native English speaker. It's fine if you can't answer right off the bat since it's kind of complicated. I have a childhood friend and now roommate who's done some bad stuff in the past I'd rather not write about, but he's been seriously trying to get into Christianity since about slightly more than half a year ago. Here's the thing. He told me about how he feels guilty about going to church and praying and how he feels like he's still dirty in a way, even after throwing away his old habits and forgetting about the people that were shitting up his life. I already told him about how, as long as he regrets his wrongdoings from the bottom of his heart, God will forgive him. And I'm pretty sure he knows that he knows this too. I'm having difficulty. This is straining on my vision. I don't like this monitor very much. But he still hasn't been able to forgive himself. My question, is there anything I can tell him or do to help him? I feel like this is something he has to overcome himself and I shouldn't interfere too much, but it hurts me to see him struggle like that. I can tell it took him a lot of effort to talk to me about this, even as his closest friend, but I have no idea what to do. Keep doing what you do, Hedgehog man. I love your show. I can tell you have more love for this world than most people, seeing how you hate evil so much. Well, thank you for the question. And as I like to do, someone left a really good comment here that I would like to read in response to your question. Your friend is not the first person to experience what he is experiencing, so it may be beneficial to read writings of early Christians, or just ask other Christians like Common Filth to see what is effective. Here's my 10 cents. Think of your soul as a garden or farm. How can you plant crops or other beneficial plants if you allow weeds to overrun the plot? How proactive is your friend in cultivating the good in him? Does he think just going to church and praying is enough to be good? Don't get me wrong, those things are good, but you actually need to live out your faith. And this requires self-control and discipline. Even if we start with small steps and with fundamentals like fighting the 7 deadly sins and practicing the 7 cardinal virtues one by one, day by day. It's like athletic training. It's not enough to do something once, and doing something horrible leaves an effect on you if you do it regularly. The capacity to receive grace is present in any human being because we were made in God's image, but you have to cooperate with God's freely given grace. He's not going to force it onto you. You can only get something out of Christianity based on how much of yourself you give to its practice. And that is why Jesus Christ demands that you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself, Luke 10:27. Excellent comment, and says more eloquently than what I could say. But I will say that your friend is on the correct path, and going to how he feels guilty about going to church and praying. I don't know if he feels guilty about that or if what the truths that are exposed through going to church and prayer are exposing. That's actually a good thing. Reflecting your past actions with this new information, this new perspective, that's good. That's repentance. He's feeling that old part of himself dying. And it might be painful, but in the long term, it's good. It's a good thing. Because that thing that is dying within himself would end up killing him. Would end up leading him to a place of ruin and misery. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for the question, and prayers for you and your friend. And thank you to Johan P. for that comment that I read. Next, I'd like to suggest 2 short 1-hour-long documentaries for you and anybody who enjoys your content. They're both by PBS Frontline and can be found here and here respectively. Go to the question comment thread for Common Filth Radio episode 79 if you want to check out those links. The first one was made in 2001 at the height of MTV, Britney Spears, and Jackass, and is appropriately named The Merchants of Cool. It's about the media's efforts to capture cool and shape cultural trends to maximize their profit margin by pushing degeneracy by appealing to the lowest common denominator of basic human instinct. It inadvertently does a good job of displaying the negrification of America at the hands of our ancient friends. The documentary makes a good point about how the market responds to and exploits our worst attitudes. Then the media normalizes them, further increasing its profits and creating more social pressure that serves to enable corruption. The follow-up, Generation Like, was filmed more recently and really goes to show how much the pause can change in 10 years. It mostly focuses on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Today, cool is found on the internet, and its heroes are obnoxiously flamboyant advertising machines, Compton punks harassing people in the streets, and the drones who line their pockets. It points out how bad social signaling has become and how corporations take advantage of technology to push the pause while increasing their profits. It features an incredibly obnoxious natural aristocrat YouTube sensation who triggered me to the moon and back. Oh, there's a lot of them. No, there's a lot of them. When I'm looking for videos, like for the purpose of making one of those montages like I made at the beginning of Tumbleristas episode 53, I come across these kinds of YouTube channels. They have millions of subscribers. Millions of young people hinge upon the every word of these wayward, perverted souls. And people tell me I fixate too much upon it. What about the millions of people that actually live by the words of these gay YouTube sensations? And people tell me I'm too fixated on it. When people tell me that, that tells me everything I need to know about them. They are completely oblivious to the world that surrounds them. Because they close their eyes, they plug their ears. And finishing with this comment, one part that disturbed me was when the teens they interviewed didn't even know what selling out meant. Anyway, hope you like them, keep on trucking. You have pointed out why democracy is unbiblical. It is a satanic form of government because it enables, rewards, and incentivizes the lowest behavior imaginable. Like you said, lowest common denominator. And that's what we as Westerners seem to be content with. At least blank, at least blank, at least blank. At least. That's what we want to be. And that's what democracy promotes. As I said earlier, you vote with your dollar. And people need to understand that those spending the money on this propaganda, they share a lot of the blame. Because you can offer a service. You can say, okay, here's this bottle of rat poison. I poured it in a soda bottle. Now I'm selling it as a soda. And it has like a rat on it. It says like rat poison soda. If you buy it, you're stupid. You deserve it. You deserve to die. You're ignoring all the warning signs. So yeah, there's the merchant, and then there's the customer. Yes, the merchant is a bad person for selling the rat poison, but he couldn't sell it if nobody bought. So thanks for the comment. I'll give those a look. What do you think about this? It seems like Reddit and the media are ignoring the woman yelling, "I'm a terrorist," and instead blaming it on her husband, saying she was drugged. Oh, is this about the woman who beheaded that child, that babysitter? Woman held for Moscow child beheading. Why is it in quotes? That's what she did. Or is it, well, it wasn't a technically stupid. Actually, police in the Russian capital, Moscow, have arrested a woman on suspicion of murdering a child after she was found apparently carrying a severed head. The woman, believed to be the victim's nanny, is suspected of killing the child before setting fire to its parents' apartment. CCTV appears to show the woman dressed in a hijab, walking near a metro station with a head in her hands. Not her head, somebody else's, this child. A police officer then intercepts her and wrestles her to the ground. The suspect has been placed in psychiatric care to determine whether she is capable of understanding her actions, the Moscow Investigative Committee said in a statement in Russian. Oh, the link to the statement is in... Okay, I get it. A criminal investigation was launched after the discovery of the remains of a child aged 3 to 4 whose body bore traces of a violent death in a charred flat on some street in northwestern Moscow. And then blah blah blah, amateur video posted online shows a black-clad woman, apparently the suspect, outside a metro station shouting the Islamic phrase, "Allahu Akbar, God is great. I'm a terrorist," she cries. "I am your death." Oh, that's great. Someone posted a really gay, that gay stick comic about, look how much science and math I know. Also liberal politics. That comic, I forget what its name was, but there was a comic and somebody's doing a math problem wrong and the guy watching says, "Oh, you suck at math." And then the same one with a girl doing the same mistake. And then the guy says, "God, girls suck at math." As if that's more hurtful. You see, we tend to depersonalize things when girls make mistakes, because we know intuitively they can't handle their own mistakes. They melt down. They don't like being unambiguously wrong. They want all benefit and no cost. That's how they're wired. We shouldn't hold that against them, but that's how society treats them. So when somebody makes a mistake, like a guy makes a mistake on a math equation, we say, "You suck." But we have to depersonalize it as to not hurt the feelings too much, to soften the blow of a woman's mistake. By saying, well, it's just her group and not her specifically. Bet if you pin the blame on her specifically, she'd start to melt down. And, that's what happens. And we, it's not like we white knight, for lack of a better word, for no good reason. We understand that they are more brittle creatures, so we go about it accordingly. But yeah, very disturbing, very upsetting story all around. That upsets me. So next. An interesting article, the butthurt have become the majority. Hopefully the struggle over position in the victim value index will produce paralysis among the SJW crowd, or with any luck they'll kill each other off. No, it'll just grow like a cancer. They'll just fight and fight and fight, and they'll appease each other more and more, and it'll keep going. The minority victim value index. Is this actually like a thing? Is there a power ranking? No. Yeah, I'm not gonna read any more articles, unfortunately, because I just got to get through these. But I appreciate it all the same. But they're not going to kill each other off. They're just going to keep growing in size. Somebody's going to, because it'll be incentive. There will be an incentive to be a victim. There will be an incentive to be a victim. People will see all this fighting amongst these oppressive groups, quote unquote oppressed groups, and they'll be like, oh, I need to join that. I need to get victim cred. And then they parlay it into a middle class salary working for some university in some capacity as a diversity outreach officer, as a blankety blank. Next, since we're all big fans of intersectionality here, I think I found something we can all enjoy. A base for the intersection of veganism and feminism, r/vegan feminist. I haven't looked through it much myself, but I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff in here. How many subscribers? 555. Well, that's not a whole lot. Oh man. See, here's the problem. There are a lot of vegans and there are a lot of feminist vegans, right? But if you're on Reddit, you're probably just going to subscribe to r/vegan and r/feminist, and there you go. Far more active, and you get your fix and from both. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort to look through 2 subreddits if you're into the whole Reddit thing. But I see this thread here. Potentially sexist, off-putting language used in vegan circles. I cannot go a day without seeing some on r/vegan trying to one-up each other regarding how disgusted they are by milk and eggs. Yes, milk and eggs make me uncomfortable, but I feel that way because they are a clear exploitation of the... Oh my goodness. See, look, feminism is fun to laugh at, right? But it's just that. It's so goofy that it's now hard to take seriously. I mean, once upon a time, yeah, you could make some legitimate criticisms there. You could have some legitimate concern over what it does, but they've accomplished everything. And what they've accomplished sucks. Notice how all anti-feminists are like, modern feminism is bad, Tumblr feminism is bad. No, all of it is. But those gates have already been opened and they can't be shut. So it says, yes, milk and eggs make me uncomfortable, but I feel that way because they are a clear exploitation of the female reproductive system. A clear exploitation of the female reproductive systems, and animals aren't ours to use. However, when I see other vegans talking about milk and eggs, they're disgusting because it's breast milk, baby cow growth formula, chicken periods, or something else that implies there's something dirty and shameful about reproduction. This has to be a joke. This has to be a joke. I don't think it is. You hear that, everyone? Let's just remind everyone. Eggs and milk are exploitations of the female reproductive system. That is some stuff could still surprise me. Post some of your music. I already have. Just thought a bit of fag news might interest you. It comes out of Toronto, of course, where 2 gay men have adopted a newborn boy and had the photo hijacked by an anti-gay political group in Italy. What disgusts me the most is how the kid's life has just started, and they're already using him as a poster child for homo adoption. I wonder why they wanted a son and not a daughter. Also, why the fuck are they naked? Is that boy the first ever butt baby? Just wanted to know your thoughts on this, although I'm pretty sure I know what they are. Take it easy, CF. Yeah, most gay couples, even though they're incapable of monogamy, they prefer to adopt children when they do. They prefer to adopt children of the same sex. It's disturbing, I know. Opinions, if any, on Davis Arini. He's got some good stuff. Yeah, I've watched some of his stuff, and it's good. How come you see more of a push for homosexual marriage in America than you see in other countries? Maybe I'm not as familiar with other countries around the world, but yet I see and hear less of a push of gay rights or the gay agenda in Asian and South American countries. I know there's some, but there isn't much. You don't hear about stuff like AIDS awareness and marriage as a human right in these countries. Is this more of a problem in countries outside of the US, or is it more of the same and we haven't heard much about it because the gay community in other countries isn't as awful as it is in America? It's not awful or good has nothing to do with it. It's whether or not they're given any political quarter, whether they're given any influence over the population. And people bring up to me all the time to deflect. Oh, white people are actually less gay than other groups. Despite that fact, Europe and America are the trailblazers for this shit. Are the trailblazers for incentivizing this behavior. But that fact can't be put into a spreadsheet so the autistics, it doesn't stick with them. I've talked about this before many, many times. The Chinese, they just banned depictions of homosexuality on television. They don't have a gay mafia in China. They do not entertain the notion of having homosexuals occupy the top of their social hierarchy. Whites, however, do. And people say, oh, it's just modernity. It's just modernity. Look at Alexander the Great. He was a fag, right? Yeah, we can see in the Bible. No, they were always like this. They've always been thin-skinned megalomaniacs. And there's more to this question. How are you still sane after the opening of Tumblristas 53? I know you say do not put your faith in man, but these are children. How does that not get to you at all? Well, children belong to humanity. Don't put your faith in them either. Look, people think just because I make something, that means it doesn't get to me. It does. But I move on from it. I say, well, what else should I expect? These are people without guidance. These are kids without guidance, and look what they're doing. Making webcam videos about how they're gay, and, wow, I'm so gay, I make it obvious, I bring a gay pride flag to school, I'm bisexual. No, that doesn't mean I want to do everyone in the room. 8-year-old kid. 8-year-old kid saying that. Next. Thank you for reading my comments on the previous thread. I'll make this short. I heard you say you were going to look into the Russian Orthodox Church. I am looking into the Russian Orthodox Church as well. I assume that you've had some exposure to the ROC, at least through Brother Nathaniel. What are your impressions regarding the Russian Orthodox Church, and what would you consider some attractive aspects of it, even at a cursory glance, that you think would warrant investigating it further? Well, the only attractive thing that I could see from the outside is that it is growing in Russia, and Russia seems to be poised for a better future than the more secular countries to the west of it. But I don't think I am because of the pagan aspects of it. I was warned against them, and yeah, I'm not dealing with that. Pagans are the biggest curmudgeons on the planet. So, yeah, and look, I get it. Not everything's 100% pure. All right, I get it. Christmas Day was chosen to compete with a pagan holiday by early Christians. I'm probably not getting a lot of the details right, but I think that's what it is. But regardless, I'm staying away from occult ancestor worship because, again, do not place your faith in man. Bad idea, bad idea, bad idea. Where do you end up on the political compass test, if you haven't taken it before? I don't view myself politically. Not anymore, at least. I mean, every time I took that test, I always ended up right in the middle. And I thought, that isn't right. Everybody calls me this evil right-wing fascist. Why am I in the middle? So, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you a story. This comes from my, school days, learning about like, oh, XYZ is the most political thing you can do, like making art. Art is inherently political. Bullshit. But, I got this idea. It's like it's always a left-wing political thing, and I don't like this stuff. I don't like its message. So, I'm going to make everything political, but I'm going to make it right-wing. But then I realized something. If you assign an ideology to your blood, sweat, and tears, you are cheapening the product of your blood, sweat, and tears. And I think the only reason why you would describe yourself as like a right-wing extremist or fascist or whatever is to piss off liberals. And look, there's nothing wrong with doing that. They're more often than not evil people. But you have to look at more than just, I'm reacting to you. I'm just going to piss you off. Like I said, there's no win in that. There's no victory in just making people angry. You got to stand on your own. And assigning an ideology to the stuff you do, that's not standing on your own. That's not allowing your work to be judged on its own merits. So, the political compass test, in short, I'm in the middle, and I don't know why, but there you go. Are LGBT people allowed to like common filth? Do I have any control over that? I don't. People are allowed to like whatever sort of content they like, regardless of whether it is opposed to their lifestyle or not. Fine. But a lot of them get mad over the long term because I won't play patty cake with them, like some other internet personalities will. So that's my answer for that, and that's all I have to say. But with that, we are done. Thank you very much for listening, and don't forget, check out Common Filth Extra episode 13. It is excellent. $1 or more on commonfilthradio.bandcamp.com. I'm also hard at work on Tumblr Easter's Raw Volume 4. And all I'm going to say is this: you're going to be blown away by this. It is some compelling content. So with all that being said, I am done. I will talk to you later. You take care of yourselves. Have a good one.
Grown, ain't I? The skinny nigga with the fro to the slightly bigger nigga who's a killer with the flow. Went from YouTube beats and SoundCloud, nigga. The only difference now is that I found Twitter. Fuck it, it's struggle rap, man. They never see the trouble that I'm going through. The way I sing, they think I live in bubble wrap. Fuck all that, even though I'm on some poppin' shit. With my niggas as my witness, I'm a nigga who can spit. Don't believe me? Overlooking my potential, I'm that poet to a phone, that poet was to a pencil. My mental is similar to that of a lion, and I'm the king of